Hello, and welcome to Bookin', a weekly podcast where we talk about novels, short stories, and poems. This week in the studio, we have me, Anthony,
Henry,
Tom.
and this week we are reading The Wednesday Wars by Gary D. Schmidt. One of my favorite books of all time. Actually, no, my favorite book of all time. And a quick excerpt from the cover. The year is 1967, and everyone has bigger things to worry about, especially Vietnam. Then there's family business. As far as Holling's father is concerned, the Hood-Hoods need to be on their best behavior. The success of Hood-Hood and Associates depends on it. But how can Holling stay out of trouble when he has so much to contend with? In a series of mishaps and adventures over the course of the school year, fate sneaks up on Holling again and again.
and on to the podcast.
You all know this is my favorite book, and you guys were the only people that said positive things about it, cause fuck you, she said this was a boring book.
Did she actually say that?
Okay, let me tell me why I talked to her at the open house. her ass said, I only read 1/3 of the book, but it was pretty boring from what I saw. I'm like, man, you didn't even fucking read 1/3 of the book. You read like 1 page of the book.
I don't think she read it. I think that's why she didn't come. She didn't read it.
Well, obviously that's why. Oh, wait, no. Actually, she never said if she fully finished the book or not. But she said she was busy today. Or, like, 2 weeks.
I had the opposite problem. I felt like when I picked it up, I couldn't put it down, and I wanted to keep everything fresh,
Yeah.
so I had to minimize myself to like 3 chapters a day. Otherwise, I was gonna finish it all.
Oh,
See, if
it
we
was
would have had
so
the meeting
good.
last week, man, it would have been solid because I finished it right before. I was right in the heat of it. And I loved
I
this
finished it the day of too.
book. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, man. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Thank you, guys. I am happy that we have, like, you guys like my book.
Well, I was telling you this before, was that this
Tell me why you... Wait, first, sorry. But why
Yeah,
didn't you
yeah.
come to the open house last week?
There was an open house?
Your sister really didn't invite Anthony?
Wait, did you get invited?
I don't know.
What the heck?
didn't get a notification.
Why did your sister invite Anthony?
I mean, I might have been, but I didn't get a notification.
Maybe she just overlooked it.
Secondly, why did no one call Anthony? Because I kind of, like...
I guess I was just busy, like,
in the
working
middle of
at
it, I
and
was
didn't
like,
think
okay,
about
wait,
it.
someone's missing. And I was like, okay, Dom's gone. Andy's
Yeah.
went to Vietnam. I'm like, where's Anthony?
I guess because so many people were missing, I just didn't
Oh, is
think
that
about
why
it.
Christina was home?
Yeah.
Oh, that makes so much more sense.
Wait, were you busy last Saturday? Anyways?
Not really, I was just hanging out with friends.
Dang, man.
What the fuck? I'm mad now.
Oh, tell her I said sorry then.
No. I'm sorry that I
We're
didn't
sorry
get
that you weren't even...
I mean, I might have been invited, but I didn't, like, my phone didn't give me a notification.
I think it might have been our fault.
Look, it's our fault because we should have said something. I didn't even realize...
Or, like,
Well, I was
was
busy,
it a
like-
paper invitation, or was it through Facebook?
It was both, but I didn't
Oh,
see
I
it
didn't
give
get
you
it.
an invitation.
But you don't go to church, though, so
Yeah.
you couldn't get one.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
I mean, you guys could have given me one at book club.
Wait, what was I gonna say? Oh, yeah.
I guess I just assumed that you were invited.
I thought you were gonna come after you had, like, work or something. So I
Oh,
thought
I
you
don't
were
have
gonna be
work on
late.
Saturdays.
Man, fuck that. Anyways,
Yeah.
I'm happy you guys like... Oh, because we were talking about the book a little bit at the open house.
But I think I told you about, I texted you when I
Yeah.
told you I liked it. I read the first sentence and I was like, oh, we're in
I
for a
was
good
kind
one.
of scared that if you were reading the first sentence and you liked it, that like the
Wait.
rest of the book would be kind of like
What's the first sentence?
like a bother, like not as good as
Oh.
the first. The first page is alright. I didn't think it was that.
Of
good.
all the kids in the 7th grade at Camilo Junior High, there was one kid that Mrs. Baker hated with heat whiter than the sun. Interesting.
Because I knew, like, from that sentence, I knew it was going to be a bond between the teacher and the student.
I didn't know you liked those kind of books so much.
I do like those books. Like Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh.
Like, things like that. Shit like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I don't know. Like I was talking to Tommy about this. I really like slice of life books. You know what those are? Slice of life.
No.
Okay, slice of life could just be like a term for kind of any media, I guess. But it's like, so imagine you have a cake, right? And like you just cut a random ass piece of the cake. You like that. Imagine like the whole cake is someone's life. Okay, so slice of life means that you just take that bit, and you don't even have to like. You don't have to like go super deep like what happened
Okay,
before or
yeah,
after.
yeah.
You know, like if you notice the book, isn't it start like Holling Hood is born, and then he goes all the way to 7th
Yeah.
grade, right?
It was just like his 7th grade
it
year.
just starts and it gives you like all the details that happened that year, not just like like 7th grade was good or it was bad or it has ups and downs. Like it explained that whole year to us, you know.
In his perspective.
In his
from that
perspective,
year.
sorry, that's important. His narrative, that's important. That's why I really like slice of life books.
Well,
They're
then,
super...
but then, isn't arguably the book we had read before a slice of life book?
Kind of.
It is. No,
I guess
it's
it wasn't
not.
as good
Sorry.
of a representation.
Sorry, it's not. In my opinion, A slice of life book should be fully in first person.
Okay.
I actually don't think that, like, yeah, you're right, it should be in first person for a slice of life, but that book wasn't a slice of life because we went back and forth so many times.
I guess, yeah, there's a lot of... Yeah. Okay.
He might have given some background information, like, that Danny whatever kid was, like... Or who was the... Doug. Doug was the...
Well, because he needed to clarify who was who, at least. Yeah. So, yeah.
But what about this book? Okay, obviously I was going to give it 10 out of 10 too, because it's my favorite book, but what made you guys give it 10 out of 10?
Like, the dynamic between the teacher and the student.
Yeah.
It just, like, really touched my heart.
Yeah.
I almost started crying. Because...
Dude, I did start crying at one point in the book. I'm not even kidding, man.
Because, like, I could tell these are one of those books where, like, they have to find that common ground, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, he thinks that... we also, like, why did she even hate him? Or
I don't think she
they never
hated
really
him.
got into that.
No, I don't think she ever hated him.
No.
I just think it's, like, what he thought, you know?
I think it's just his overdramatic middle school stuff.
You know,
and also, it's all in the context of the book is that you don't really understand what someone's going through, and you assume a lot of things, but she's dealing with her husband going to war. And that, no matter what, seems like it's taking a toll on somebody. Well, it takes a toll on her. So, to see a kid that has no type of religious background, she feels like, whoa, what's wrong with this kid? You know what I mean?
So they both kind of have, like, the opinion. They both have, like, pre-existing opinions about each other.
Well, he does have a religious background. He's Presbyterian.
What is that? I
have no clue what that is.
I meant to look it up,
hey,
but I guess.
Do you know what Presbyterian is?
Presbyterian is like a type of being Christian.
Yeah,
I
thought so.
Is it still like an Abrahamic type of faith? Or?
It's like, what is it? What do you think? Those people, Reformation kind of thing, right? Reformed.
Man. It's been a minute since I've been in Catholic.
Keep going, I'm gonna look it up.
But I'm pretty sure. Lutheran, no, because didn't he say something about like someone was old enough to be like Abraham's friend or like something like that? There was a quote in the book, right?
Oh, I don't know.
I thought there's something like that, but yeah,
it's still like under the Christian umbrella,
yeah,
I guess.
it's just like vague Christianity.
Something. But he didn't attend church, I guess. So that was just.
No, he did.
He didn't attend. Well,
yeah, he did.
In the story, he ends up doing it, but when they encounter each other, he wasn't a frequent church attender.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, so.
But you know what this book reminds me of?
What's up?
What's that book with the English teacher in the inner city school?
School.
Is it Freedom Riders?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that.
That's a really good book, man.
It's kind of like a
You love that movie.
The teacher and the student don't really get along, and then in the end they're like throwing it out.
It's funny how at the beginning of the book, my image of Mrs. Baker was
old.
was just this fat, like mold, ugly lady, and then towards the end, I just found her to be this young, fit, kind of heartbroken lady that her husband had to go to war, and she's young.
That's what I was thinking too in the beginning. Like when he says "I hate her," that kind of makes you think.
I just thought of the nastiest teacher I could possibly think of.
She's old, but then like when you realize that she has a husband in the war, so that means her husband can't be that old either. Yeah. So then at first I was thinking like literally like, have you guys ever read Calvin and Hobbes?
No.
Okay, never mind. I remember like old like curly gray hair, but then when you find out that she's young enough to have a husband that's in the war, I thought of her like with like blonde, lush like long hair, you know. So literally throughout the book, my image of Mrs. Baker literally changed like 180.
I guess I pictured it as a brunette, but not that.
Her husband's probably this 25-year-old hunk.
Yeah, I know.
That's what I was
He's probably an animal, man.
Yeah. He's like, I have 300 confirmed kills.
Yeah, I know. He's probably the original American.
Killmonger.
Yeah. Kind of like in Black Panther.
Yeah, that's
what he was referencing. Yeah.
You know who she reminded me of? Because like the picture right here, she kind of reminds me of Professor McGonagall, like Maggie Smith, just that old bitch face kind of.
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I do not know this reference.
Okay. Is she kind of bigger?
No, she's actually super skinny. But yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So, what part did you cry at, you bitch?
Well. Okay, so. Actually, I think I might have marked it. Because, dude, that shit was...
Marked it with your tear?
No. No, it's just a little bit wrinkled in this. So, Okay.
I have a feeling Tommy reads his book like this, though. I have a feeling.
Dude, I do.
I don't know. I have a feeling. Yeah.
How did you know
I can't do that.
Me neither. It's uncomfortable.
How could you
Oh.
just have that feeling?
I just saw the chapter marks, and you know what I really liked about this book? It went month by month.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that a lot.
I feel like
too.
that kind of helps the pacing of the book, because, like, okay, you know it's based on the school year, right?
Yeah.
So as every month goes, you know that June is the last month. So it kind of, like, you... Like, sometimes you read a book and you can see, like, oh, I'm close to the end. Not because of the plot, but because of, like, how far... Like, you look through the page and see, like, oh, am I halfway there yet? Am I or 3/4, right? But with this book, you just see the months and you know, like... You feel like you're going through the school year with him, you know?
Yeah.
Which I really like about this book. You feel like you're, like, his best friend. Like, you're there with him at that moment.
Not that you're with him, you are him. I feel like.
I don't know. I really felt like I was
I
with
don't
him.
know. I felt a connection with the teacher too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so do you know the portion of the book where she finally gets a letter from the principal or whatever saying that her husband was found?
Okay.
Do you know that part? Where she keeps getting letters saying her husband is missing in action.
Yeah.
And then there's a part where she gets a letter saying from her husband. It was
He was found in the jungle. or whatever.
yeah. So just more of the building up to that was so much of parts in the book that you wouldn't think much of, and I'll just read it. So this paragraph, it goes, it talks about the sound and just the symbolism of the sound. So it goes,
Oh, yeah.
It goes, think about the sound you make when you let go after holding your breath for a very long time. Think of the gladdest sounds you know. The sound of dawn on the first day of spring break. The sound of a bottle of Coke opening. The sound of a crowd cheering in your ears because you're coming down to the last part of a race and you're ahead. Think of the sound of water over stones in a cold stream. And the sound of wind through green trees on a late May afternoon through Central Park. Think of the sound of a bus coming into the station carrying someone you love. And those were so many significant moments in that book from him winning that race that kind of got me like really hyped up, because that's just like such a profound moment that I think in my life, having a victory or something, and then the moment of his sister coming home on the bus, and all those sounds, they all don't relate, but they relate in the sense of happiness that he feels for himself. And then that relief that she felt, that was the only way that he could describe the sound, that it wasn't the physical noise, it was more of the feeling of relief that he had. And I was like, dude, I just started like tearing up because I could just picture him trying to describe the sound, and he just doesn't know how to. Only with feelings he can describe the sound, you know?
I'm surprised this isn't a movie yet, because, like...
Yeah.
It has a very, like, indie kind of vibe that I know you and Andy would fuck with a lot.
Dude,
that's why
it's
because, like, when that part, I could, like, picture it. It was almost like walking through a meadow kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the easiest way I can describe it, is that sometimes things you don't know how to explain in words, but you know how it feels. And I think the author did an amazing job of not using words to describe the sound that Mrs. Baker made out of relief, but more of the feelings that she felt. And to a young kid in middle school, the only things that he's ever known of relief to himself is winning that cross-country thing, having his sister come home after running away, and the sound of Coke opening to a kid that just sounds so refreshing to you.
Yeah.
And that's just so powerful in the way that, I don't know, I think this is such an incredible author. I was like, dude.
Did you know that he's a English professor at Calvin
Yeah.
College?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to find this professor and have him sign my book.
Dude, I know.
It's down the street. Let's go.
I want to go and, like, take a class there for the summer and just be like, yo, so, taking English 101 again, because I just wanted to...
But what I want to touch about something that you said about, like, because basically you said, like, he only, like, the way he speaks in the book is very, like, I guess, I don't know, authentic to, like, how a 7th grader would talk. Like, he doesn't say, like, these huge, like, long, like dictionary, thesaurus.com words. And I kind of thought, I don't know, the diction, like, it didn't sound like a 7th grader's at times, you know? It was, like, mature enough that made you think, like, oh, this is probably, like, a teenager or, like, someone that's in, like, you know, like, in high school, you know?
Yeah.
Which I like.
English professor.
Yeah. But also, like, I don't know, it was simple enough that you didn't feel like you were, like, struggling to read through the pages. It just seemed kind of like you were listening to someone's story in your ear, you know? It was kind of like whispering through you instead of you having to, like grudge through every single word and, like, think
It sounded
about what
like if you were
meant,
sitting and
know?
having a conversation with them.
Yeah.
You know, where they're not trying to sell themselves in
True.
any way. They're just telling you a story.
Like the words were so smooth, like it feels like they were meant to be like next to each other. Like you could just walk through the pages, you know. You didn't have to like earnestly try to like go through anything, you know, which I really liked.
And I think that's why the part that I just shared was just so powerful to me, because it just seemed like they were just placed so well next to each other
fit a
in
lot.
a sense. And everything of the whole book felt really tied together. Whereas in Ghost at a Watchman, nothing really tied in that kind of way. Everything was just really systematic and just told a story, but it never made you like, you know?
Maybe because the ending was shit and didn't tie anything up.
Could be.
I think there's a lot of books where it's just like a book, you know, they tell this, they tell that, they set out the problem, they solve the problem. But this book, like, the author was really clever almost. Like, he mentions something, and he goes away from it, but then he brings it back. And he repeats it, and he makes a metaphor of it.
I love the Shakespeare.
That was
like,
pretty great.
The parallelism with the Shakespeare along it, that was probably the funnest, because I did a lot... I'm kind of a Shakespeare fan, only from being in a play in one in high school and just learning one from... Because my English teacher in high school was also the theater teacher, so he was huge on Shakespeare. So every time we read it, he would just dive so deep into it. And I just got this huge appreciation for it. So just to like hear Caliban's lines, because I played Caliban, and he keeps using lines like, "As ere my mother brushed with raven's feather, an unwholesome fen drop on you both. May the southwest weather blow on ye and blister you all over."
Can you explain this bats, beetle, toad thing?
Bats, beetles, and toads is just kind of like saying, "God damn it," kind of thing. Okay. It just like, it doesn't mean anything, but it's just a way to just show you're pissed off. Just kind of like, like if you replace it with "God damn it" in the back, like you say, I guess you want to know what Mrs. Baker did when Lieutenant Baker came out of the plane, and I guess you want to know what Lieutenant Baker did when he saw Mrs. Baker on the tarmac, but god damn it, if you can't figure out that for yourself, then a southwest wind would blow on you. So I just replaced toads, beetles, and bats. It's just kind of like a replacement for that. Yeah. It doesn't really, it's not something you'd call somebody, it's just kind of like, damn, you know what I mean? So,
but I love how, like, with the entire Shakespeare thing, like, he kind of, like, had them read it, but then he just like went at it and mentioned it over and over, and he even had one of his friends say like bats, beetles, toads.
Yeah,
when something bad happens.
Yeah, I just really like how the kid just took on this new language and just used that.
I'm happy
really
that
clever.
like that even though I did not read a lot of the Shakespeare plays that were mentioned, I think the only one that I actually read was Romeo and Juliet, and I guess I watched The Tempest because I watched your play.
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't know, I still enjoyed like how he related like Shakespeare plays like into like the actual book, and it kind of gave you something to like kind of think about, where it's like a book within a book, but like you actually know what like you can read Romeo and Juliet on your own, and you can see like the fiction,
parallelism.
There's a non-fiction world inside this fiction world that we're reading, which I really like that aspect. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's really convoluted, but like it's cool to see like, oh, Romeo and Juliet is a real thing in this world that we're speaking in, and it's also a real thing in Howling Hood's world.
Yeah.
Oh, I just realized they were star-crossed lovers because of the Hood. Okay, first of all,
wait, what?
What the heck is the name Hood? I know. Fucking Moon Moon. Like, damn it, who brought Hood here?
It just sounds so
Who
weird.
brought fucking Hood?
And Howling is a fucking weird
I know.
name, too.
I thought he was a girl from the beginning. Howling. I thought it was Holly
but like
or something.
Hood Associates or whatever, and whatever Kowalski Associates or whatever.
Yeah.
I just realized.
No, just the parallelism. So I think in every story that he used in
like
Shakespeare,
that, bro. I like
then
that.
something
it was
happened to him.
parallel with his life.
Yeah.
And it's just so interesting. I liked when he would make his really bad initial impressions of each story that he would read, and then towards the end, after a while, after he talks to Mrs. Baker, he comes to a new conclusion about it. I think that was really interesting, just to see after him going through a situation, whether that was the Kowalski, or I forgot her first name, but after he went on...
Merrily.
Yeah, Merrily. After he went on a date with her and she supposedly stole the designs, gave it to her dad or whatever, but that isn't what really happened. But in the same parallelism to Romeo and Juliet, Romeo speculated all this stuff when it didn't really happen until he looked at things in a bigger picture. So, yeah, I think that's
Speaking about Meryl Lee and the Kowalski family, what do you guys think about their relationship? Because I don't know, I really liked like his relationship with her because it felt really genuine, and it had that kind of like whimsical spark that like when you were in 7th grade, you had crushes on people at school, and you could kind of like I don't know, it just felt really just happy, and even though if they didn't like you back, it was just kind of.
I mean, we all had that one gal best friend.
What's a gal best friend?
Gal best friend.
Oh, gal best friend.
Or
okay.
like if you're a girl, you have that one guy best friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I
feel
felt like it was just like kind of really innocent almost.
It was innocent,
Yeah.
but it kind of felt, it was more romantic though. I don't think it was just best friends, right? I felt like there's like
Oh,
romantic vibe.
Yeah.
It
Like
started
especially
going
when they were
that way.
washing dishes, when they were camping and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know, I really liked it. It just made me reading about him and like Meryl Lee just made me feel kind of happy, you know?
Yeah. I think there is parts where I felt really sad. I was listening to he wouldn't talk about it, and I love that the author did this, that he didn't talk about it, but he just said everything except Holling's thoughts about it, which was his dad being
A dick.
well, not necessarily a dick, but just
Uncaring.
so separated from his life and not care about his children at all. All he cares about is his business. But you never hear Howling go off or rant about it. You never hear, like, he rants about everybody in this book, like from his friends to his teachers, but he never rants about his dad, because I feel like that's something the author made an interesting. I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to dive too deep into his thoughts, but maybe the author wanted to make it seem as something that's an untouched territory towards him, where he doesn't want to talk about his dad. That's not something that he feels he wants to talk about.
I actually did pick that up too. I thought it was kind of like the author leaving it with us and deciding, like, using our brain and like putting one together, like this is what their dynamic is.
Right.
But his dad is truly a dick though. Like multiple times he didn't even go to the play. He didn't go to the baseball game.
When his son got in an accident, he didn't even show up to the hospital.
Yeah, it's
Like,
just like
that was kind of the tipping point for me.
He said one convenient he
Yeah,
will stop
I know.
by, and he never did.
that's
I know. And his son like was in the paper and all this stuff like that, and all his dad kind of took from it was, oh well, I hope this gets a good
Helps the
reputation for our
business.
name. You know what I mean? And it's just
And then the way he was talking to what's the sister's name?
Heather.
yeah,
Heather. Yeah, she was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to what was it, Penn State or
Columbia.
Columbia.
Yeah, Columbia.
Yeah, she had like all these dreams and ambition. He just looked at her like, no,
Yeah.
just
He's
like
like,
brushed it off, like
You're
not
gonna be a
even.
secretary here or something
Yeah.
like that.
Well, maybe this is kind of like maybe it was the times, like, you know, patriarchy was in, you know, in 1960s. I guess that's what I would think.
I guess because this was after World War II, Vietnam War kind of came in, so it was a lot about people coming back from World War II and wanting to just grow themselves. They had a fresh start, so they want to do everything to build the American dream. But then it's so interesting that it's written even at that time where kids saw the American dream and didn't really see the happiness in it, you know?
I liked how the book, it was, you could feel the tenseness sometimes when you're talking about like, the Vietnam segments, and how like you can just imagine the vastness where the TV would be like, oh, there's like 20,000 troops like stuck in I think one certain city or the jungle, and it had like a clenching feeling where you kind of like you can feel like everyone else in like the world in the U.S. just like watching their TVs
Just kinda stop
at the
for a
same
second.
time, just think like, and I liked how they always call them like our boys and stuff, like you know, it was
Yeah.
just super like community.
They didn't have to know them or anything.
You didn't know them to be like our boys are stuck in Nam and
Yeah.
shit like that. I was like, wow,
It's kind of interesting to where
it made me feel like super like I couldn't even like kind of breathe. It's just
Yeah.
like so much stress.
So then imagine letting your breath out.
Yeah. I think that's interesting to look at our modern take on just war and that topic in general. We don't have that on the news anymore, and people don't really talk about that topic or have as much respect for the people that go into the military. So, but then again, we're in peacetime. We're not at war, I guess. So that's kind of interesting.
But isn't it kind of weird to think that the other side of the story we're reading about is like the Vietnamese side, which is kind of like,
Yeah, I think that
like
was what.
us. Isn't that kind of interesting that
Yeah.
the story's like kind of about us?
Oh, what's her name?
Mai
Mai
T.
Tai.
My T.
Yeah,
Oh, it's Mai T.
My tea.
My tea.
Oh, I read as Mai Tai, like a Mai Tai drink.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but when she mentioned baka,
Yeah.
I was like, man, my
Yeah.
girl. And then they mentioned the fish sauce.
Yeah.
Like, Mom.
I was
Yeah.
sad when she got harassed. I kind of felt
Yeah.
like I got harassed too.
Yeah.
Not gonna lie, because she was.
I guess I just thought back to middle school when I would get harassed for being Asian, but I never really thought about it. I just kind of pushed it off.
Mhm.
But then it made me look back, and I was like, dude, no one deserves to be treated like that. Even if I didn't even if I didn't care, at least I should have stepped up for the sake of maybe another Asian kid that has thinner skin than I do, I guess. So, yeah, that was a really interesting dynamic.
Oh, what was you guys' reaction when my T got adopted by, or
Dude, that was another like heavy.
got
eye
a
moment.
legal guardian with what's her name, Mrs. Biggins?
B. It started with the B, I think.
Yeah, I think it was another B.
Yeah.
She was a lunch lady, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that they had a connection.
I mean, that was a good moment because I remember she was the one that was like mad at Mighty because her husband had died,
Her husband.
and
died
she
in
says
Vietnam,
she said something to Mighty or like acted really meanly to her.
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, she
Was
kind
that
of
the beginning?
No, it was towards the middle.
Yeah,
She
I
said
know.
something along the lines of, "You don't belong here. You just go.
Like something like
Or-
I forgot.
You just." I think it might have been something about the food where, the soldiers don't belong in Vietnam.
I remember
they should
now.
be home here safe, and
Yeah.
you should be back over there.
Yeah.
instead
She's
of
like,
here.
you're cushy here in your orphanage home, whatever.
Something like that. Yeah.
It was Christmas time.
Yeah, but she had nothing to do with it, But it's just
It's nice to see like how Mrs. B is the first person to actually like kind of attack Mighty for being there in the story.
yeah.
But then at the end, she kind of forgives her, and then she lost one family member, but then at the end of the story, she gains a new one in Mighty.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's just interesting back then too. That teachers could say that to a student.
Oh,
I mean, teachers were allowed to slap
Imagine if-
students back
I know.
then.
Imagine if like a teacher said that today.
yeah.
Lord have mercy, that would blow up.
Dude,
Social
I was
media.
really,
I know.
I was really mad at Holling when he was talking to Mrs. Baker. He says some bullshit, and then he was like, something. But you don't have a lot of problems to worry about.
Yeah.
When her husband was in Vietnam, I'm like, bro, you really fucked up.
Yeah, I know.
And she didn't talk to him for a week.
But he didn't know why either.
He didn't know why.
Yeah. No. For the longest, he didn't know.
Oh
why. He
yeah,
was
that's
like,
right.
Yeah.
That's
Why
right.
is Mrs. Baker still ignoring me?
7th graders, man. Low key though, if there was a 7th grader like this, man, I would be friends with him because he's cool.
He seems cool.
He's
man.
cool.
He seems cool.
I just love how he's the fastest and all the 8th graders pick on him.
Dude,
because of that.
I know.
Yeah.
I think that's really funny. I thought that was so inspiring too. Just listening to this. They just described it so well. Just him winning those races and
Yeah.
stuff.
When, what was it, Danny Humphrey?
Yeah.
Humper?
Yeah.
When his knee's all bloody and he's like on the sideline cheering for him.
Yeah, he's
I
like,
was
yeah, bro, just
Yeah.
go win. That's so motivating.
I didn't really like the rats in the story though. I didn't really
Yeah.
know what they added to the story.
More
Comedy, I don't know.
I guess just a
complex
little-
situations.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. It just made a middle school story a middle school story. It
Oh,
has to have
yeah.
some kind of weird little.
Weird rat teacher's pet.
Yeah. I
Or like
guess.
a classroom pet thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But also, okay, as much as throughout the years I was hoping there would be a sequel to this book, I'm happy there is no sequel. Because to have there be a sequel, it gives you something to like be let down about. It like for a book that I cherish so much, I love the characters enough that they can grow on in my own imagination rather than me having to read something else by Gary D. Schmidt.
Yeah, I mean, this book seems like it was resolved.
Everything is closed
tie
up.
was, I mean, every knot was tied.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say like necessarily resolved, but it was a good closing to his school year in a sense.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it's still just a slice of life. It was just picked off and put on a serving platter for us to try that slice. And
Just a little
I'm
nibble.
yeah, and Gary Schmidt.
It's a meat junk name. I don't
Schmidt.
know, man.
So he wrote other books too, and I think I just want to read other stories by him because he's a really good author. Dude, this was awesome.
If this one was at this tier, I wonder what his other books are like.
Do you guys think that Howling, like, after he goes on to 7th, 8th grade high school, do you think he's changing from his dad? Do you think? I think he sees more, he has more perspective than his dad ever will, And I think like as he grows up, he's not gonna take up the architect business. I think he's gonna go do his own thing. You know?
Yeah, because remember at the end of the book when he was talking to his dad after the the Jewish thing,
The bar mitzvah.
yeah, he was saying like he was finding himself.
Yeah.
He said something along the line. Well, his dad asked him
Is this? Oh, it's something about being a man, right?
something about who are you. Oh, and well, it was something about it being a man, and Howling said how he didn't need to be an architect and own this to be a man.
Yeah.
He's like, but I do want to find myself or something. And he's like, okay, so who are you? He's like, I don't know, but I hope I can find out one day. And I think that's just really interesting is that the difference in generations is that one found themselves, well, thought that they found themselves through success, through business, through wealth, through reputation in the community, whereas the other one find themselves through fulfillment and purpose. So, yeah. And I think that's interesting, too, that a lot of the stories have that theme. I remember, actually I might have marked it down, was that, do you know how Mrs. Baker assigned him that assignment about the Romeo and Juliet and how he had to write down what he thought the theme was? So it would go over a couple of days and he would change the theme depending on how what's-her-face would treat him. But then his final conclusion was, what Shakespeare wanted to express about being a human being in Romeo and Juliet is that it's hard to care about two things at the same time, like caring about the Montague family and caring about Juliet too. Here's the last sentence. If Romeo had never met Juliet, maybe they both would have still been alive, but what they would have been alive for is a question that Shakespeare wants us to answer.
That's beautiful.
Dude,
that
isn't
honestly
it?
is beautiful.
Isn't that
And
powerful?
that's one more reason why I love Merrill-Lee, the Howling relationship, because I don't know, it just seems so innocent. It makes me kind of like, it makes you want to reflect on your own life and realize why don't you have something like that with somebody else, you know? Because like when he didn't even realize she was showing up to school with sunglasses on, and he was like, he said something and she took them off and they were red from crying, and that just made my heart like tear up.
Yeah.
It was just so sad. Like
that was
she,
a hard one too.
like she like cared about him so much, and she felt truly so bad for him because like they were so innocent, and like she never would just anything would hurt him like that.
Yeah.
And to show that she cared that much about her, like hurting his family or whatever, it was good.
It just looks at when they're at that age, when they're that young, it is innocent, where no one has to make them do anything.
Yeah.
And they're just so natural to make their own choices.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not forced by any type of financial situations or reputation or anything. They just do things because they just want to, because it feels fulfilling to them. So, yeah, that's dope, man.
I'm surprised no one talked about the sister. I thought she was kind of important in the story a little bit. Did you guys not think so?
I feel like she was kind of that spark that put it in Howling's mind that he didn't have to be an architect. Mm-hmm. And she was kind of egging him on, like, do you know who you are?
Yeah. I think she was a good character, and that I think that's what you said was really good, that she kind of was the spark that made him rethink a lot of things about his life and who he was.
And she just kind of added to the entire like the dad complex on what kind of character he is, and the dynamic with the dad, with like not with just him but the entire family too.
But her character's really realistic too, because I think back in the day in the Vietnam era, like a lot of teenagers were like pushing towards, you know, let's end the war, let's be like
Flower child.
peaceful and stuff. So it was really realistic too.
Yeah.
I liked the book. It was realistic historically. Like the writing was amazing. Like it was authentic to 7th graders, but it was, you could read it as a more mature person too. Yeah, obviously like my favorite book, so I can't say anything else about it.
Do you think Gary Schmidt wrote it based on his own life experience that he lived through?
I don't know how old this nigga is, but
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
I was gonna say, did he
They don't
live
have a
through
picture.
World War II and the Vietnam War?
I don't know how old he is, but he has to be at least pretty old. He's a professor, I guess.
I don't know. Because if he's
I'll get technology.
in maybe his 50s or 60s, then
Is
he
it-
would be a kid through the Vietnam War. If he was in his 50s.
Is the book in Long Island?
No, he was born in Long Island, I think. Oh,
Okay, no, he actually did live through that, because it says here that he
He's
grew up
61
in
years old. He was born 1957.
Dude, so yeah.
So
this
he
is
was
definitely a story based on his life.
So yeah, he was like.
I wonder if he has a sister. See if he has a sister.
Okay.
It says it right here. He grew up in Long Island suburb where he crouched under his desk during atomic bomb alerts, heard powerful voices speaking out against the Vietnam War, memorized Shakespeare, and pounded eraser against brick walls at school.
So this is all real, man.
Yeah.
Dang.
That's cool. I feel like to have something this great, you have to experience it at least a little bit for yourself. You can't just write a completely fiction, you know? Like, he has to draw something from his life that made it so, like, profound.
Dude, imagine going to play catch with the Yankees players.
Yeah.
Dude, that was so crazy, man.
I know, and it's... Dude, what's that one... The Christmas Day signing dude? The baseball player, who was that?
Who's being a douche?
Who's the douche?
I don't know.
I forgot his name.
I don't remember what his name
Mickey
is.
Mantle.
Yeah.
Mickey Mantle. That was a dick move. He was a kid. He just wanted your autograph, and you said no to him just because he's wearing tights.
But his friend, though,
Such a dick.
that was true.
I know.
That's
That's
true
such a
friendship.
real friend.
I know, man. What a homeboy. Hey, but he ended up coming. What I don't understand is why the third kid got to go down to the gym and like play catch too. I don't want that third kid.
Mrs. Baker is a really hot, but also nice teacher.
Maybe.
In my head, she's hot now. At the end of the book, she's hot.
Yeah. I think she's pretty hot too.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder what they did with those strawberries.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder what the strawberries are. Oh.
Well, I'm happy you guys like the book. So Tommy says it's his new favorite book.
Yeah, dude. This is my all-time favorite
Is
book.
it on
now.
your favorite time list, I guess?
I will say that it will forever hold a place in my heart.
I like that.
And I would definitely want to see this be made into a movie.
I kind of don't want to see it made into a movie.
I
Really?
think we should make it into a movie.
I don't know. I don't
Well,
want
I
to
think
watch...
Anthony should make it into a movie.
I don't want to
and
watch
then
the
we'll
movie and
make
have it bitter the taste of the book forever.
Well, what if it followed the book really well?
Okay, who would play Howling? Because this person, in my head, this person's a lot older, but in reality, you know this nigga's in 7th grade, right? Like, who's gonna play that? I don't know any. I
mean,
listen to
not
favorite
any,
actors.
none that come to mind
He's
right
gonna
now.
be. He has to be really young, you know.
Yeah.
I can see his sister being Lily Collins or something.
Oh, I can see that too.
Yeah.
Hey, he could be one of the Stranger Things kids.
I don't watch Stranger Things.
His dad could be that guy that jerks off on American Horror Story.
Have you watched Stranger Things?
No. But I think I know who you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
The main kid, right?
Well, one of the three. One of 3 or 4. It could be like the main kid.
Did you have a book in mind for next week?
Yes, I do. Do you guys want to hear it?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
What is it? Wait. First of all, is it like a book you read already or no?
Yeah.
Is it your favorite book?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Dude, this book, when I first started reading it, it was hard because it had that 7th grade, like a well-read 7th grade language. So it was hard to keep reading. I was like, dude, this is so childish. Dude, but it got good so quick.
I was afraid. Like my biggest fear about this book was that you guys would think it's a little bit too childish, you know? Too like, oh, this is for like middle schoolers and shit. That's what the biggest thing I was afraid of.
Well, the way that the book kind of starts made it seem like that in the language they use, but then the closer you read it, you realize there's a lot of symbolism.
Yeah,
and,
it's so intentional. It's awesome.
Things that are put in there that you have to be more mature to understand.
Dude, this book was awesome. I remember reading it at work, and one of my buddies at work was like, hey, so how do you like Gary Schmidt? I was like, oh, you've read from him? Have you read this book? He's like, no, I've read other books by him and stuff. And I was like, does he have kind of like a young kid reader? Like he,
Style.
more
His
that,
target audience.
Yeah, his intended audience. He's like, yeah, it would probably go towards the younger audience. But keep reading. They all get really good. And I was like, okay. And then I just kept reading. I was like, dude, this is super good. So, yeah. Good pick, Henry.
Thank you. And you, who didn't probably read
Yeah.
the book.
Who this girl thinks she is, man?
Okay. Sorry, I'm gonna have to do this to you guys. Okay, so my book that I
Don't tell me it's
choose.
a Harry Potter book.
No,
Okay, thank God.
my book that I choose is called Something Like Summer.
Oh, did they make a movie out of it?
They did just make the movie out of
The
it.
movie
I'm waiting
got
for it.
terrible ratings, though.
Jeez, this is why I don't
5.9
want
out
them
of
to make
10.
a movie out of my book.
Okay, Something Like Summer. The hot Texas nights were lonely for Ben before his heart began beating to the rhythm of two words: Tim Wyman. By all appearances, Tim had the perfect body and the ideal life. But when a not-so-accidental collision brings them together, Ben discovers that the truth is rarely so simple. If winning Tim's heart was an impossible quest, keeping it would prove even harder as family, society, and emotional threats threaten to tear them apart.
They're gay, right? It's two boys? Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well,
alright, let's do it. Dude, I'm down for it. Let's go.
I'm liking
It
this.
gets really steamy at some parts.
Okay. Raunchy. Okay,
Alright.
change of pace.
So when you read it, just think of me.
I'll
man.
keep the lotion next to my bed.
Okay.
Oh. Alright, man. Something
Cool.
like summer.
I'm
Okay,
excited.
so
Wait, it's by J.
J Bell.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
making sure.
Yeah. But I have to send you it because you can't find it in libraries usually.
Is it an indie book kind of
It's
thing?
a really indie book.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
so you have a PDF. Is it a
I do
PDF?
have a PDF.
Oh,
Okay.
cool. I don't like reading out PDFs, but I mean,
Hey,
struggle through it.
whatever.
How long is it though?
I think it's 300 something pages.
Oh, wow, so read. Okay.
Yeah.
So, are we still planning for next Wednesday then?
We can't, because Tommy, we're really slammed this weekend, dude.
Yeah.
Like Friday.
Oh yeah, you guys have finals next week, right?
No,
we-
finals is this week and
we
camp's this
can't.
week.
We have Friday,
hey,
Saturday,
are
Sunday.
you going to camp?
I'm not. I'm gonna be in Indiana tomorrow.
Okay.
So we're all slammed.
I mean, I'm down to just read at camp. They just lay in a hammock and just read.
But you have to get your phone out to read it though.
Yeah.
So,
Or laptop.
I don't
or
need the
whatever.
internet.
That's hard. I don't like reading off my phone. I like reading off like paper. But
But either way, we have to read it off the phone.
can we just say like, for sure not next Wednesday. I think next Wednesday would be a hard deadline to reach. To be
Okay.
honest, for me.
Maybe we could do.
Next Friday.
Can we do Friday?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
could do
next
Friday.
Dr. Friday. Are
Yeah.
you good for Friday, Ben?
He doesn't have work, does he? No, he
Wait,
doesn't.
Friday?
Next
oh,
week.
I mean, I hip C.
When do you leave?
Thursday.
Thursday. Oh.
Thursday night.
Probably Thursday night. I don't know for sure yet.
We can go Thursday. Get one extra day in.
Just give us one.
So Ben could be part of it for once.
You want to do it on Thursday?
So, yeah, I'll read the book.
All right.
Okay, so long story short, we love the book.
Yeah.
Sweet.
10 out of 10.
No, this is. I was saying how I wanted to get a copy, but I already have a copy from Maryland.
Yeah.
But I want to go get a signed, dude,
I'm
and display it somewhere. This is my all-time favorite book right now.
I'm gonna return the book, but then take the book out of the library again.
Yeah. What if I got the library book signed and then they
Right.
charge me for?
Vandalism.
Yeah.
Vandalism of government property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right. Thank you for listening to Booking It Episode 2 with the Wednesday Wars. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bookin' It is a storyboard production starring Henry, Tommy, and Anthony Nguyen. You can find us on SoundCloud and YouTube at Bookin' It Book Club. But until then, gotta book it.